Hey guys, back again. I want to talk about onions today. Now, onions are one of those things that a lot of people have a lot of interesting ideas of how to cut an onion. Maybe there's no right or wrong way to cut an onion, but there are better ways to cut an onion. I take it back. There are very wrong ways to cut an onion. I have seen a lot of those. I always enjoyed it when I would have new employees when I was running my restaurants. Eventually, they're going to have to cut an onion. And I would watch them, and it's one of those things I could tell that somebody's had any experience in a kitchen working with food, depending on how they cut an onion. And I've seen some really bad ways to cut an onion. Very rarely did I see someone cut an onion the way that I was taught in culinary school. So today we're going to talk about these onions. These are Vidalia onions. They're really brown for Vidalia onions. But Vidalia onions are sweet onions. When Vidalia onions aren't in season, a lot of times what you're going to get are Peruvian onions. So they're sweet onions from Peru, which I found out recently that a lot of those farms in Peru are owned by farmers from Vidalia. So when they're not in season in Vidalia, they're growing them in Peru. So even if you're buying the Peruvian onions, you're still supporting the farmers in Vidalia, which is important to us because we live near Vidalia. I'm in Statesboro, Georgia, so it's not very far away at all. So what we're going to talk about is how we're going to cut this onion 3 different ways. So this is the tip of your onion. This is the root. First thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the tip of this onion. Now, if you're new to using a knife, I always teach my students, you pinch the blade, all right, 3 fingers around the handle. Whenever we cut, we always use this part of our hand. And we're going to keep our fingertips in because I know from experience, fingertips come off very easily. And then so we're also we're not going to cut the root off the same way that we did the tip, but we're going to cut kind of all that hairy junk off of the root. We don't want that, but we want to keep that on there because the first way that we're going to do it, we're going to do a small dice. It's going to kind of keep everything held together. So next thing I'm going to do, now that I got this flat section, is I'm going to cut it in half. At this point, I'm going to take off however much of the outer layers I need to. Sometimes you can just get the thin outer layers, and then sometimes, like now, they're not doing so great. But also, if you see, it gets kind of like papery on that next level. You can just go ahead and take that off because a lot of times what that's going to do, you're going to go to like chew it after it's cooked, and it's not going to break down. It's not going to be delicious. So we're going to go ahead and do both of these. So now we have 2 halves of our onion. So very easy way to do this. Like I said, we're gonna do small dice. It's not diced like if you're dicing, like a carrot or something, because you're gonna have like dice. These are going to be flat squares because obviously those layers are not going to be the same. So first thing we need to do, we're going to go in here about a 1/4 inch, right? About the width of a pencil. To go in here and do that. From here, what gets a lot of people scared is we're going to cut this in half. Now, could have done that first. We could do it now. See, some people go at an angle, some people go in flat, some people do like 2 times, right? But we just want to get in there at least once. And then, so now, right, what we're going to do, this is kind of like those ASMR like soap videos or whatever. We're going to do it, and we're just going to cut the same size. We went about a 1/4 inch. We're going to go to 1/4 inch this way. What's going to happen is all of that is just going to start to fall apart. Now, these aren't going to be perfect looking because of that curved thin layer, but a lot of times when we do this, we're going to be cooking them down anyway, so they don't have to be perfect and beautiful. But it's also going to give us relatively close pieces. I like to go in at the end, kind of cut a little bit deeper, because there's already some lines there. Then we're going to go in with these, trying to use as much of the product as we can. And so even just this 1/2 of an onion, right, gives us about a 1.5 cups of diced onions. So get something to put these in. Now we're going to talk about other ways that we can cut it. All right, now we're going to talk about 2 other ways that we can cut these onions. We're going to do half moons. for this one. So a lot of times in my restaurants and even just in my personal cooking, this is how I cut my onions the most simple way. And so we're still doing this little claw technique that we talked about, and we can do these, like, we can do them thick, right? So you could do a whole one, like if you're putting them on burgers and stuff, it would be all round, but I like to cut mine in half. So we can do them thick. I don't normally do mine very thick. I like to do mine really thin, because a lot of times what I want to do, I want them to cook down really, really well. Maybe I'm going to like caramelize onions, something like that. But I want them to cook down. I don't want them to, like, we did small dice, like, in my cooking, those, there's not going to be much left to those. But even sometimes, like, if you have a sharp knife, you should be able to get them, super, super thin. And so we're going to do like this. So when we cut it like this, it's going to break down a lot easier when we're cooking it. So especially if I'm caramelizing onions, definitely doing it this way. Now the other way, right? So if I'm doing something, say like a stir fry, something where I want the onions to be in there, but I still want them like crunchy, right? I don't want them to like really, really break down. Instead of cutting them this way, like we just did, I'm gonna cut them this way. Just that simple 90-degree rotation is gonna make a big difference in how your onions come out. Now, when I'm doing it this way, I'm gonna make sure I take that root off, because I don't want that root to be attached to every piece of it. Some people, you see, they're gonna cut it and kind of go around, right? You don't have to be all fancy. You can literally just go straight through and cut them this way. I get about halfway. I like to rotate it, right? And so to be safe, this is what we call a bridge cut. You can do your hands over, right? Make sure that we're not doing that. So if I want my onions, like I said, to be nice and crispy still, like got some crunch to them, I'm gonna cut them this way. But if I'm going to, cook them where I want them to break down, so we're gonna do, that other direction. So that's just quick little instruction about onions. I love onions, big fan of them. I know a lot of people don't like them, allergic to them, just hate them, things like that. But if you like onions and you just don't know how to cut an onion, or somehow terrified of cutting anything, right? These are 3 basic things. So if we were to cook them down, pretty much gonna like disappear. I'm gonna small dice them. If I want to do things like caramelize them, things like that, we're going with these. And then if we want them to stay nice and crunchy and stuff like stir fries and things like that, we're gonna cut them that other angle. Hope it's informative. All right, we'll do some more later. All right, see ya.